Welcome to another episode of Stowe Nation, a production of Park Media. Before I introduce today's guest, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, share, and leave a 5-star review. And if you find this podcast useful in any way and want to pay us the ultimate compliment, head on over to our Patreon page where you can subscribe to be a Classic, Stealth, or Beast Mode subscriber. Before we start this episode, I gotta tell you, I had some more technical difficulties. I sincerely apologize, and I do really appreciate your understanding and patience. And as you know, in order to give you guys a YouTube version of this, I have to have some way of being able to record everything. And I've been trying different platforms, and hopefully soon I will be able to find a platform where I can actually rely 100% or at least 99% of being able to give you that YouTube version. But the good news is that the content is still really good. So please enjoy this episode. Okay, thanks for joining Stowe Nation for our very first bonus episode. This bonus episode will be a company highlight, and the company we'll be talking about is a company that we all know very well, and we all drool over their awesome products. It's Owl Van Engineering. John Willenborg, the owner and founder, has been a serial entrepreneur and a product designer for the past 20 years. John founded his first company in his early 20s shortly after graduating from UC Berkeley. Prior to Owl Vans, John designed photography products and lenses for the Apple Store. John has always been passionate about the outdoors and built his first Sprinter van in 2010. His journey with Owl Vans started 2 years ago in his garage when he welded his first prototype. Today, Owl Vans is the world's largest leading manufacturer of Sprinter accessories and gear. His passion is innovation and design and has many new products in the pipeline for 2021 and beyond. So with that, please give a warm Stowe Nation welcome to John Willenborg. Thanks for joining us, John.
Absolutely. Glad I could be here. It'll be I'll enjoy going down this rabbit hole with you all.
Nice. I hope you are ready to get grilled.
I don't know if I signed up for that. I'm never going to talk fans. It's going to get any juicier than that. I don't know.
No grilling. Light grilling.
I'm just joking.
No,
I'm just joking.
Grilling, yeah.
But not really. Yeah. No, here we go. But no, I do appreciate your time because I know you're super busy. Let's just get right down to it. So my first question for you is, when did you start Owl Vans and what was the motivation behind it? And then from when you started it to now, what are some of the highlights in regards to the difficulties that you had to overcome? I know that's 3 questions in one.
Wow. Yeah, I know there's a lot to unpack there for sure. Owl Vans was one of those things that kind of happened organically for me. It was really born out of necessity. I've been a product designer for most of my life and had a company that I had sold. Well, rewind a little bit. I got my first Sprinter van in 2010. I've raced motorcycles most of my life. And when the Sprinter came out, I said, oh my gosh, that would be the absolute perfect vehicle where I can pretend to be a plumber and have very expensive race motorcycles in the back, drive from track to track, sleep in it. And at the time, it was kind of a novel idea. People thought I was kind of odd. And they're like, why wouldn't you get like a big 5th wheel travel camper, all these things? And, Paul, I know you've owned many of these types of campers and so on in the past. So one of the things that I've noticed that the more vehicles you own that are RVs or campers, the smaller you get, the more you use it, the less you realize you need. You don't need a washer and dryer. You don't need a 50-inch flat screen TV. So for me, it was born out of, getting the van. And then there was no Owl Vans. There was no adventure wagon, or at least if there was, I didn't know about it, of people that made these things for these vans. So it was very much the only community that there was DIY. And thankfully for me, I've always enjoyed working with my hands. And I had an uncle who would be a much more interesting interview than me. He was a Navy SEAL and then turned deep sea welder. So he would weld the footings of like oil rigs. When they go put an oil rig out in the middle of the ocean and they have to drop divers down hundreds and hundreds of feet, he would go down and weld those things, and they would actually keep them not decompressed. I guess compressed is the right word. They would keep them at depth for like a month at a time because it's too dangerous to take them up and down. So they would go down hundreds of feet. They would come up, get the bends, and get right into a decompression chamber where they would stay for a month. They would dive every day and then sleep in a tube. Anyway, so he was a badass, and he taught me to weld in summer. So when I was going to school in the summers, I would take automotive classes for fun. So I got my ASE. I don't know if I actually passed the test, but I went to all the ASC classes that you would go to become an auto mechanic. And then I also learned to weld, and it's kind of strange, but that was what I enjoyed doing in my free time, as opposed to, a lot of kids like to just go out and play and stuff. So that's kind of a long backstory. Fast forward, I had my van and I wanted to carry stuff, and I wasn't a fan of the swing out systems. I just didn't think that they offered the solution that I wanted. So I decided to try to make something that hung off the back doors. And I did it, and I was very proud of myself. This was on an NCV3 van at the time. It was a 2010. And I did it, and I drilled holes in the door, and I bolted it all up, and I was all proud of myself and smug, and I go to open the door, and the door won't open. And I'm like, no, what did I do? And that's when I realized that the hinges articulated a different rate than the actual face of the door. And it all of a sudden made total sense why no one had done this before, because it doesn't work.
Yeah.
And so then it took me about a week of rolling it over in my head, and I was like, aha, I got it. I can fix this. And so I ended up using a tie rod end, like a sway link from a Subaru WRX, because I knew it was a part that had been engineered and tested for tens of years and millions of miles. So I knew it was going to be robust. It was an off-the-shelf part that I could buy. And so I built my carrier around that. And it was just pretty much for me. And then people responded to it and wanted it so badly that I was like, you know what, maybe I will make a small run of these. And so I agreed to do that. And by morning I had, 20, 25 emails in my email box of people wanting these things. And wow, there's something to this. And from that day till now has been an absolutely amazing, fantastic ride, and getting to know this community and work and do things that I love has kind of all stemmed from that. So sorry, that's a really long answer to your question, but that's kind of how I started in this and kind of the birth of Owl Vans.
That's pretty cool. So what are some of the struggles since you've started Owl Vans up to now that you've had to overcome? And you don't have to go into detail about how you overcame it, but I guess, on the principal side, what were the things that helped you overcome those obstacles?
Well, at the risk of sounding like some sort of motivational speaker, I would say that what helped me the most is my past failures. And I don't mean failures in a global sense. I wasn't like some, unemployed living on a couch my whole life by any means. I had other companies that were successful, but I had made decisions in them that I was able to play out the ramifications of over a long-term scale, with real dollars and real people's jobs at risk and my own income at risk. So being entrepreneurial, every time you start something and have success, you learn from it. And every time you start something and have a failure, you learn from it. And I think that the best learning that I had coming into this was what I learned at my last company, which I actually used to make lenses for iPhones. And I always thought that if I simply made the best product, then people would buy it. And I learned that it's how you communicate that story that is almost as important as the quality of the product. And that's where my failing was. And I think I learned that lesson best from a lot of people probably heard of GoPro. And I bet a lot fewer people that listen to this have ever heard of something called Contour. Well, Contour was a camera company just like GoPro, and they were first, and they were better. And so they had all of the advantages of being a first mover, having better engineering, a better feature set, a better camera, a better form factor. And what did GoPro had? GoPro had great marketing. And you fast forward 5 years, and GoPro, I think, was at a $2 or $3 billion valuation, and Contour went belly up. And Contour the whole time had the better product. And what I learned from that is you can't just be a good product. You have to be good holistically. You have to tell that story, or people won't know you exist. And that's what GoPro executed on. And so the guy that started Contour ended up starting a competitor to my company. And although we did well, he did better because he had been through that learning, and he knew that, yes, he had to build a quality product, but he also had to tell that story. And that's what he did. And I learned from his learning. And so when I started Owl Vans right away, I said, from the first time I welded this, I started recording videos of it. As I said, the amount of time and effort and just the sheer number of prototypes that I go through people need to see this, because that will make them comfortable putting this on their van, knowing that I spent months designing this. I spent months throwing this away, tens of thousands of dollars, etc. And so I would say that that was one of the biggest learnings coming into the business. And then you just have all of the struggles of a rapidly growing business, and how do you sustain that, and how do you change it? And
no, I mean, you're absolutely right, because I've been looking at Owl vans, and I think like most everyone who's gotten any type of Sprinter has watched Owl vans and like Illuminous and like all these other companies before they even get the Sprinter, right? Regardless of use. To go off what you said is that I did watch you. I watch your story. I watch how hard you work. I watch the customer service ratings, et cetera, et cetera. And that's ultimately why I personally decided to buy from you instead of your competitor. So, I mean, your hard work and the lessons learned, I think, are definitely paying off, because, I mean, your business is booming like a rocket going to Mars, you know?
For me, it was the video where you jacked the van up. That's I think everybody's, if you haven't seen that video, you've got to watch this video.
Yes,
that was the clincher for me. I was like, oh yeah, I got to have something I could jack my car up on. Why not?
Yeah. So for folks that haven't seen that video, basically there were a lot of people, and it's always easy to criticize folks, and shame on me for not communicating how much testing goes into this and how many real engineers. We're not redneck booger welders, and you might be able to get away with doing some stuff that way, but with what we do, if something fails, someone could get hurt, and it is absolutely unacceptable for us to take that lightly. And so it actually scares me really badly, because I see some people, you get big enough and people copycat your stuff, and it's like they copycat everything except the engineering, and you're like, no, that's critical. Don't do that. Don't make an aluminum tire carrier with a single point of failure. You're literally, you could kill someone doing that, and that scares me. It's one thing to have someone copy your stuff. It's another thing to have them copy your stuff and not know what they're doing, and that really scares me. But yeah, with the van, I know how strong our stuff is, and we have engineers that run all of these, load tests and shear forces and all of these different aspects that are a little bit above my pay grade, but I have very good engineers. And so we knew how much weight our carriers could hold. And so you've got my Revels of, let's call it 9,500, 10,000 pounds ish. And so we bolted one of our carriers to the back of the van, and we lifted the van entirely off the ground on one post of one of our bike racks. And it's like, this is a rack that is designed to carry a 30-pound mountain bike, and people are concerned that their doors are going to fall off. And I'm like, I'm lifting up the back of a 10,000-pound van on a pole that's meant to support a 30-pound bike. You're going to be fine. Yeah.
No, that's a great way to show people.
Great video.
Build confidence. Great video. So those that are listening to the audio version, you probably recognize Paul Pritts from episode number 1, but just in case you haven't listened to that episode, I have Paul Pritts as a co-host, and I actually asked him to be a co-host for this specific episode because, one, Paul has probably bought everything that Owl has to offer.
Just about, almost.
And two, he's installed it by himself. So who better to talk to the actual owner of Owl Vans?
Well, now I'm nervous. I hope everything went well.
Oh, it was fine. I had one issue. You helped me out with it. I called up and
great.
It was dealt with. Yeah. So I wanted to kind of just start with like, where are you at today? Like physically, where's your location right now?
We're in Northern California. So we're in Marin County, so just north of San Francisco. It is maybe the absolute worst place outside of maybe Beverly Hills to start a manufacturing company. And so started off behind the 8 ball there. The cool thing is it's good because there are a lot of van lovers. For people that haven't been to Marin, the mountain that the mountain bike was invented on is visible out of our window. So this is kind of this is a very outdoorsy community. It is very, everyone that lives here hikes and bikes, and they're van people essentially. Everyone that's been in this community long enough, and I know you talked about it on your last podcast, the best part of this whole thing is community, and I couldn't agree more. And that community that shares that passion for the environment, that passion for the outdoors, that passion for getting away from screens and these kinds of things, that's Marin County. So I love that we're here and we kind of share that vision. But we're going to be expanding. For those people that don't know, it's called Owl Off-Road, and it's a kind of offshoot of us that's doing installs and installation centers, because what we've found is that there's a gap in the industry, and it's not necessarily that we need to fill every gap, but it affects us. I like designing products. I like manufacturing, and installation is an incredibly important business, but it's also time consuming. And so we're going to have different installation centers around the US. We've got one in Anaheim, one in Northern California. We're going to be adding them, probably one in Arizona, and then maybe like a Salt Lake in the Pacific Northwest, because we've got people that build vans, soup to nuts, take an empty van, convert it all the way from the ground up. You've got, people that sell turnkey vans, but there are very few people that will install accessories. And the people that build vans for a living can't really afford to stop building vans to install, somebody's flare space, for example. They're like, well, I'll sell you a whole van, but I can't stop building vans to install your flare space. I'm too busy. And so we end up with this kind of hole in the market where you have people wanting to get stuff put on their vans, and we make it, but there's no joining of the two. And so Owl Off-Road is kind of an opportunity for us to make that connection with a customer and get anything that they don't want to get installed. Paul, to your point, I will continue to make stuff DIY, because I think that elegant designs should be simple. So we will continue to try to do that. But honestly, we've got some products that I think coming out. I'll give a bit of a teaser. We've got something coming out in the next, first prototype should be about 2 to 3 weeks away, and it will completely change the capabilities of the Sprinter van, like game changing. And it has been an incredibly difficult path to get there. That will not be a DIY. So,
what is it? You can't just drop a bomb like that and then just be like, boom, I'm out.
You can't really do that.
I can't say what it is yet.
That kind of podcast.
I could say that Paul, you'll probably want one, but it's not going to be a DIY thing. And so we have to have our network of installation centers ready, so that the last thing I want is to come out with this kind of what I think is a really, really awesome new product and then not be able to get it to people.
Well, now you got my interest. Yeah, you got my interest peaked. Yeah. So, and if it's not a DIY, it's got to be pretty significant, because John knows there's very few things that I won't tackle.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's cool because there's a lot of stuff that I think we do well at Owl, and then there's a lot of stuff that you need to just be able to find the right people, and you can reach a size. And one of the cool things is, when I started Owl Vans, there's like a tipping point, and I don't just mean a tipping point of being successful. It's a tipping point of, what do I want this to be as a business? Like, who are we? And for us, I wanted to deliver a level of product and customer service that was great in any industry, not just the van industry. And there are partners that I absolutely love in the van industry, but I would say as a whole, I think the bar is set kind of low. I think that the customer service is set low. The shipping times, there's a very low bar. I think that the quality of a lot of the products, and I hate saying this because it sounds like I'm knocking other companies. I'm not. I just think that it was an immature industry that grew very, very quickly, and I think a lot of people got very overwhelmed. And the amount of capital it takes to scale, people, and I get it, they don't understand, and nor should they. It's not their day-to-day business. But people, when lead times would grow, they go, well, why don't you just hire another welder? And it's like, okay, well, a welder uses so much power. I have to get a welding machine. I have to get a table. I have to get a new building because we've maxed out our power here. So I need to rent a new space. I need to, spend $30,000 or $40,000 of electrical to get that welder wired. So it's not hiring a welder. It's 3 months and $100,000 to get that new space and so scaling in this industry is hard. It's not easy. And I know from the outside, it's like, well, why don't you just build more? And I'm like, yeah, I may not be the smartest person in the world, but I do understand that if we could build more, we would. Anyway, so when I started this, I really wanted to deliver on that promise to myself and that promise to the customer of running things the way I would want to interact with a company. And so for us, it has been incredibly difficult, the amount of time, money, and capital that we put back into the business. And that has caused the business to grow. But dovetailing on that is the ability to do cool projects like this. We now have the capital to be able to go out, and it's a little bit daunting sometimes because it'll be like, hey, this R&D project is going to cost, this amount of zeros. And I'll be like,
Right.
well, I know I can sell it if we have it. And it's like, okay, do we want to do this? And it's a little scary. And you're like, I was in my garage 2 years ago, and now, I'm writing a check that could buy someone's house because I want to build this cool new product. And that's scary, but it's a part of a business. If you're trying to build stuff for a van that's $200,000, $300,000, you can't do that with backyard equipment. So
No, agreed. Yeah, no, I think you make some really good points about scaling business and manufacturing. I think anybody that hasn't spent some amount of time in manufacturing doesn't understand what it takes to scale up. Regardless of what your demand is. There's a lot of parts and pieces that have to go into play. So let me ask you, last year, obviously, we got hit with this global pandemic. How did that really affect you guys? What good came out of it? What bad came out of it? And how are you guys managing? I mean, that's the COVID question.
sure.
You had to expect that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was complicated early on. Not to take it down a really tough path, but we learned later. We didn't really know what COVID was, but we actually lost my father-in-law early on to COVID, and it was quite sad because they didn't really know what COVID was, and he had gone to the emergency room multiple times, and they kept turning him away, saying, "You'll be fine, you'll be fine." And in hindsight, I don't really think at that time there was much they could have done anyway.
Hmm.
But so that was tough because I mean, for the obvious reason, it was someone that we all cared about. And it was just everything, all of life's stresses in one, right? You've got a pandemic coming out. You don't know what's going to happen with that. You don't know how safe you are, how safe your family is. At that time, we didn't really know, like, does this affect kids? And anyone that's a parent, you could care less about anything else. Is this going to affect my kids? Um, and so there were those fears. I had a staff. I had just bought a new building and expanded and just kind of ramped up because our growth was accelerating. And then it was like overnight, everything fell off a cliff. And so everything was in complete disarray. And you just kind of go into this one foot in front of the other kind of
Right.
uh, operation in life where it's like, you know what, I'm going to wake up and I'm going to get through today and I'm going to make this stuff work and I'm going to get the bills paid today and I'm going to see how long I can keep everybody's job and so on. And thankfully, I happened to be in an industry that was able to continue and there was a demand for. And
Hmm.
that's not the case for a lot of industries with COVID.
Right.
So, I always say it's better to be lucky than good. And in that sense, given the circumstances, we were very lucky that was able to that we were able to weather that. And I was actually talking to Keith over at Flare Space. We were just down in Mexico on this trip, and he said, yeah, same thing. When COVID came out, he was like literally like, okay, how am I going to tell the staff that we're going to close the doors because everything just nobody knew what was happening, and people aren't going to go spend money on a van if they don't know if they're going to get sick or whatever. So it was a trying time, but I'm sure I'm just echoing the thoughts of everyone listening to this podcast because
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm really sorry to hear about your loss. I wasn't not aware. I don't know how many of our, if you've openly shared that, that's awful. I think you're resonating what a lot of us felt. I don't think there's anybody I know that wasn't somehow impacted with a loss
Yep.
in their, immediate or extended family.
Yeah, I mean,
So I'm very, very sorry to hear about that.
no,
Yeah.
I appreciate it, and yeah, I mean, I think that's to your point more typical than atypical at this point. With I think we just crossed the 500,000 threshold, and regardless of what people's viewpoints on how it was handled or not, that's a reality, and so with that number of people affected or lost, then you're going to have that. You're going to have whether your immediate family or extended family, it's going to affect you.
So you guys, you go away, you shut down for a period of time, you come back, your inbox is flooded with orders. I mean, what did that look like? I mean,
Yeah,
how
it was
was
very odd. And then you're navigating that of I never want to be a boss that or an employer. I hate the word boss. I never want to be an employer that um,
yeah,
forces people to do things they're uncomfortable with. And so we had some tough meetings, and um, it was interesting because at first I was like, oh, does it make sense to open, because under the guise of essential business, automotive is loud. And I'm sitting there going, well, does this make sense? And then all of a sudden we were getting calls from people saying like, hey, I live in my van and I need XYZ done and I don't have anywhere else
Mhm.
to go. Can you help me? And I thought, oh, you're right. People live in their vans. We need to
Right,
be a service for those people. It's essentially like if you're, an HVAC person and someone during COVID and their heat or whatever goes out, someone needs to fix it. And so that part of it got cleared up for me pretty quickly because I realized that we were offering a service that people needed so that they could get in their vans and go away and be safe. Um,
yeah,
and then it was a frank conversation with the staff and being like, hey, what are you guys comfortable with? Does anybody um, live with someone that's older and not want to come in? And I said to him, and I was very
mhm,
honest because I think that's the only way I want to be with my employees. I said, look, if you choose to not come in, I will support you and I will pay you for as long as I am able. But that's the promise I can make. I don't know what we look like if we have no employees and I'm just paying people's salaries in perpetuity. Like that has
right,
that has a time limit on it. That's a time limit for me. Money
right.
doesn't come from nowhere. So um, people made their own decisions and some people took some time and I was totally comfortable with that. And honestly, I don't even remember who did. So that's how it wasn't a thing here. People that chose to take some time and figure out what was going on before coming back to work, that was their decision and it was fine. And we weathered it. And we social distance. The one nice thing about what we do is I'm in an office and I'm kind of away from people and I'm unfortunately doing emails most of my day. The welders are in gloves and masks and hoods all day anyway and spaced out with shields between them for the light. You've got, at that time we had fewer employees. You maybe had one person in a warehouse packing and another person in another room shipping. So we were an industry that was very conducive to social distancing because we simply don't work side by side.
It's great that you guys were able to provide that for your employees, and employees become family members,
Absolutely.
and it sounds like you got an
Well,
awesome crew there.
and Paul, I appreciate you say that because I do feel like so much small businesses, all politicians say how much they love small businesses, and then they pass all these laws that ruin small
Right,
businesses. And um, I think there's been some sort of demonization of the workplace and people's motives. And I have encountered so many, especially in this industry and in industries I've worked at, people that care so much about their employees. And I find that is more common than the other. Everyone has a horrible job experience. I've worked terrible jobs that I would never wish on my worst enemy, but not all my jobs were terrible. And then one of the first things
right.
when people come in here that we say to them is like, look, everybody here we care about. And so you got to pull your weight, not because it's pull your weight or get fired, but because people here are relying on you. We really are a family and we care about the people that work here. And so I will say this, like, I think that more of the business owners that I've met, certainly in this community, care a lot more about their employees than they do the bottom line. And I hate that kind of that all businesses just get painted with this brush of, oh, if someone's running a business, they're trying to exploit every last dollar from every employee they have, and when they're done with their
Right.
employee, they throw them out, and it's not that way at all.
Those businesses are out there. I've seen
100%.
them, but I think they're the
Yeah,
exception and not the rule
yeah.
for sure. Let me switch gears a little bit for you here. And the biggest question that I see come up a lot, and maybe you can kind of enlighten us on this, and I'm perfectly fine with the way things are, but why only Sprinter vans? Why only the Mercedes? 'Cause I see that a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, no, we get inundated with it. It's a complex question, and I think that, and again, this comes back to past businesses. I think that one of the most important decisions you can make as a business owner is not just what you're going to do, but what you're not going to do. And I think that is very often overlooked. You can play chase the shiny object, chase the dollar,
Right.
and it can hurt you overall. You know, for me, it's a tough decision. Early on, you go kind of thin and wide because you think you know what's going to work, but you don't really know. So we actually had some transit products for a while, and we had to pull back from them. We got so busy with Sprinter, scaling is hard. And what I realized is what I want to offer is the best possible products at a given, um, at a good lead time and good customer support. And what I quickly found is I couldn't do those things. I couldn't be that for all models of van. It was too much. And so what I did is I said, you know what, we're going to stop making the transit products. We're not going to make anything for anything else, because we got to make sure that we execute on our plan for sprinters. And when we are happy with how we're doing with sprinters, the quality, the lead time, the customer service, everything, then I will broach the topic of expanding to other makes and models again. And if that means that other companies are able to get a beachhead in those industries, then that's what it is. But I'm not chasing them. I'm chasing my goal for this as a company, which is to offer the best possible products and service, which sounds like lip service, but it's genuinely true. And we don't always get it right, but
yeah, it's the old saying, do you want to do one or two things really well, or do you want to do a whole bunch of things kind of okay?
Yep.
And it sounds like you've chosen the first path is you want to do something really well rather than trying to spread yourself too thin
and
compromise quality.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. And truthfully, too, this market is so immature that you look at, I know you come from an overlanding background, and you look at the Jeep world and these kinds of things and the amount of products offered, and we don't have basic overlanding things for vans yet. And until we get the basics checked off the list, it's tough to want to move on to other things. And and truthfully too, there's some logistical aspects to it too, which is the transits have 3 different roof heights, and they're much more spread out as far as who owns what. The hinges are there are a ton of different hinge types. The doors are not as robust, and they're like mid-model year hinge changes. And so what you end up with is for sprinter vans, you might carry 1 SKU for a tire carrier, and it works for everyone. And for transit, you'd need 12 SKUs. And it's not only a matter of having the 12 SKUs, it's a matter of the customer has a bad experience because the hinges look very similar. And so they order a product, they get it, and then they're frustrated because it doesn't fit. Now you've got to ship it back and forth. Now I've got a product that I can't sell as new. It's an open box item. It's not our fault, not really the customer's fault. And so you end up with this dynamic. And I'm like, I don't like this. I don't like that we're working really hard and not executing properly. The customer's frustrated. And I don't like that, because we both spend a lot of time, effort, and money, and we both walk away from it not being happy. So from that aspect, I wasn't ready to go into transit stuff.
Can you quickly, I understand that you just decided to go down the money pit of owning an old FJ. Did I get that?
Oh my God, it's such a money pit. It's such an addiction. I'm so embarrassed. I absolutely
and I'm speaking from experience, because I've been down that rabbit hole.
I've seen your tan 40, and I also have a tan 40.
Awful. It's awful.
I have 2 tan 40s. I have a 55 and a 60. So I have Land Cruiser problems. Now, granted, these are not show vehicles yet. It's really, what it is it's the dream.
I know what it is.
Here's my goal in life. And the sad part is it really doesn't take much effort and money to accomplish. My goal in life is to be a grumpy old man on a porch with a beer and a stick that I'm whittling, and some old Land Cruiser parts at my feet that I'm slowly sanding. And every person that walks up to me, I go, "Robble, robble, robble, robble," till they leave my property. And so in preparation of my long-term goal of being a grumpy old man, I need steaming piles of rusty garbage that I can someday turn into something amazing. And so I'm acquiring these things, and I'm going to put them somewhere where they don't rust, because you know what it is? I have all these, like, Facebook has me pegged, those jerks. They got this algorithm and they know me. And so someone puts up user, and that is 1/3 what that vehicle is worth. And then I can't not buy it, because I'm like, I could flip it, and then I get it, and then I never flip it. And so there's like that I'm not good at. I can build van parts. The acquiring old vehicles is a sickness, and you might need to help me.
It is. It is a sickness. I you know what? I guarantee you, there's a number of us out there that are also van owners with the same sickness. I think it goes hand in hand. I think it kind of does. There's that desire to have something and continue to upgrade it and upgrade it and upgrade it and have fun with it.
Well, I mean, it's interesting, because I think there's people that come at it from both sides. I think there's people that have spent time overlanding and RVing and so on. And then the cool thing about vans is it pulls in folks that have never done that as well. And it's an interesting dynamic because you have people that have a rock crawler Jeep and they've done the Rubicon and they go to Moab and all these things. And then you have someone that owned a Honda Odyssey. And you're like, okay, these are not the same. And and servicing those customers is very different because they come at it from a very different knowledge base. And so, but it's so cool. I love the community. And I also love that I think it's still a very welcoming community. And I think you go into a Jeep forum and you go into even some Land Cruiser forums and these kinds of things, or even folks that grew up in the 90s or went to high school in the 90s, you know, when import tuning scene, when the Hondas and the BMWs were very popular. There is this condescension and arrogance among the people that know that almost have to haze the people that don't know. And
it's like the bezel police is what I call
your
them.
bezel's upside down. Yes. And for those that don't know, you'll figure it out. Just look it up. But,
there's the bezel police.
And so we're not there yet in the van industry. And I'm nervous that we will trend there 5 years from now, 10 years from now. But
I could see it going that way, but I think there's enough people like you, like me, you know what I'm saying? There's enough people that don't want it to go that way, that want it to stay the way it is, that to retain this culture that we've kind of built around it. I think inevitably, you know, you're right. I think it may head down that path, but I think it's going to be a slower death.
I hope.
I also think in regards to that, it's people like you, like the industry leaders that are working with other industry leaders instead of trying to cut them down every second they get. Because as soon as either you, I'm not saying you would, but you or someone else, you know, from a competitor is like, oh, owl vans, you know, F them, whatever, this, and this, right? So as long as we work coherently together, I think we'll be able to sustain that good community.
Yeah, I've had experiences where I've almost accidentally spent money with companies that, you know, and I say accidentally spent money is because I didn't really know what they were about. You know, I called them up, talked to them. I wanted to have maybe one thing done. They don't know what my van looks like. They don't know me from Adam, but I'm taking their temperature. You know, I'm wanting to see, you know, what's their service plan look like? What do they look like? I called a guy a few weeks ago. Asking about some recalibration, you know, what did he think? And he basically told me straight up, he goes, I don't have time to talk to you. He goes, if you're not buying a whole bunch of stuff from us, we don't really have time. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, thanks for your time. And, you know, they're on my do not call list, you know, and so you're always going to have, you know, that, but, you know, the better the service experience, I think those are the people that are going to come back year after year and buy more upgrades like me. I think I'm a perfect example of that I've got almost everything you guys sell.
You know, it's really interesting you say that, and you say that that's been your experience, because where I sit in my desk, customer service is right outside my door. So my door's open. I get to hear them talk to customers all day. On the other side of my office is sales. I get to hear how they deal with customers all day. And I love
That's awesome.
And so at the beginning of this year, I took about a week. Actually, it's more like 3 weeks, but a week really working hard on our plan for 2021 and what we want it to be. And nowhere in that plan was a sales figure of what we wanted for What was in that plan is who do we want to be as a company? And I really love that you brought up that comment of we don't have time to take this call if you're not buying all this stuff from me, because what I said is as a company, here's what we do. And what I wrote in our plan is we are supporting connection to the outdoors through family, adventure, education, and economic opportunity. And what I mean by that is everything we do needs to point back to that of who we are as a company. And so when someone calls up, and they'll call us up and they'll be like, hey, what do you think of a storyteller versus a Revel? Or, hey, I'm thinking about getting a 144 or 170. We don't sell vans. And so I started to hear this thing creep in where people are like, you know what? We don't sell vans. I'd call your local dealer. I'm super busy. Thanks. And I'm like, whoa. No. We are going to be friendly and approachable. And if someone has 100 questions about a van, then we're going to stay on the phone and we're going to answer 100 questions about a van, because what I have set as the goal for this company is to be friendly and to allow people to connect with the outdoors and their family. And so if we're putting someone in a van that makes them happy, whether or not they ever buy a product from us, we've done our goal. And so I've empowered my employees to spend that time with people, whether they're asking about our products or not. And this is not this is not an invitation for people to call me with all your DIY problems.
I was just thinking that.
But it really is, because that's the company that I want to be. I want to be someone that's approachable, and that if someone calls, and this is scary stuff, these are 6-figure vans, solidly 6-figure vans, not like 90 grand. These are, anywhere from 150 to $200,000, and that's not a small purchase. For some people it is, for most it isn't. And it's scary to drop that kind of money on a van. You need to ask questions, and you need to know that there's a beating heart and someone that cares that's going to answer your questions. And you can't always get through. And I think a lot of the RV dealers are very RV centric and don't know a lot about vans. So anyway, I'm glad you brought that up, because I think that that's a critical aspect to this industry, and we need to keep it friendly and approachable and help people out any way we can.
So let me switch it up a little bit on you. And so right now, we're obviously a storyteller based podcast. Okay. Open to everybody, but storyteller. And so specifically right now you're doing the Sherpa for the Beast.
Yes.
Do you have any plans on doing anything additional for, maybe 2022, anything like that?
So I am really, really impressed with Storyteller and then what they've done. And the nice thing is, sometimes you just find companies that you are just work really synergistically with, and throw out all those overused linguistic terms of business. But it's like, I like everything about who they are, how they handle their suppliers, what they want to be. We see eye to eye with them. So it's a really, really good fit. And we just had a chance to go down on this trip to Mexico, which we can talk more about, which I want to start doing with customers. It was just so much fun, and it just really brought back my love of everything about vans. But it was a chance to go out there, and we jokingly said it was IPAs, not NDAs, and it's a bunch of companies working together, and we're doing more business by sitting there in a dry lake bed in Mexico, having a beer around a fire, and working out deals with companies who the deals we work on have ramifications, big ramifications next year. And it's not sitting in a boardroom and arguing over contracts and stuff like that. It's like, hey, what's Storyteller's vision for next year? And them asking, hey, what does Al want to do next year? And then finding a place that those two paths meet. So I'm really excited at what they're doing. I think they're going to be a tremendously successful company. And I think it's because they care. I see it in everything they do. And they are going to have issues like everyone else. They're doing something very hard. They're building a vehicle. That's not an insignificant thing to do. And so there will be problems, but they care, and they're going to be very, very successful. And I want to work more with them. I know we've got some stuff. Again, I hate to do this to people. It's so obnoxious, but we're privy to obviously information about the future that, outsiders aren't. And unfortunately, with this community now, it's gotten.
This is all insiders here. This is
There's only 3 of us in this chat room right now.
Only 3. Yeah, I don't think
absolutely.
I wouldn't be able to do business with them again if I spilled the beans. But I will say this: Storyteller is not resting on their laurels. They are not saying, "Hey, we built X number of vans last year, and so if we just do that again, we'll be fat cats and we'll be happy." No, they've got some lofty goals and some cool things in the pipeline. I think people are going to be very impressed with what they do. And if Owl can be a part of that, I will be very excited and honored, because I like the way they do business, and I think they have a great product.
So we are going to see what I'm hearing you say is we're going to see more Owl products on Storyteller vans going forward.
That's the hope. I mean, nothing is final yet, but that would be the hope.
Hey, John, I wanted to take this opportunity real quick for you to be able to answer some of the more common questions that you repeatedly get time and time again.
Common questions. I think what I like the most is, it's not a common question in the industry, but it's outside of the industry. I'm a huge proponent of the trades and blue collar work. And I think somewhere along the line, we used to hold people that put in an honest day's work and sweated and worked hard and got dirty. And we used to put them on a poster on the wall and say, this is what America's built on. It's built on the hard work of of these, blue collar tradesmen, et cetera, and tradeswomen. And somewhere along the line, they got labeled as kind of less than. It was like you either go to a university that is like Stanford or Harvard or whatever, or you're less than. You either get a job at Apple or Google, or you're less than. And that always bothered me. And so I love the fact that in Marin, it's a lot of wealthy people. And I go to these parties at wealthy houses. They're friends of my kids' schools, parents, and they're very successful people. They're lawyers and these kinds of people. And they ask, what do you do for a living? I was like, oh, I bend metal. Oh, really? You bend? Yeah, I bend and weld metal for vans. And they're like, huh? And then there's like this look of like almost like pity. And I love that. I was like, you have no idea what we do. You have no idea the complexity. You have no idea how big a facility this is, how hard the guys work, what this industry is, what it's building. And I'm okay with that, And so the question I get asked most is almost a question that's not overt. It's like a look of like, oh, how do you afford to put food on your table? And it's like, oh, we do fine. And it's like, this is a pretty cool industry and it's full of really, really cool people. And someday you'll probably buy some parts from me. And, so you can go back to your partnership and go finish your martini.
Hey, what trade shows are you doing this year? What's that looking like for you?
So I think we're going to do adventure van expos, a number of those. We did the overland expos in years past. I just don't know. I know there's one in Flagstaff, kind of closer to your neck of the woods. I can't justify the cost at this point. Those things are incredibly expensive because at this point, you don't want to go. It's one of those lines you have to walk. You don't want to go and look anemic because it's almost brand damaging. So you don't want to show up like one guy with a chair and a table and like one van, because if you're a big company, you show up like that, then by relative comparison, you look, I don't want to say weak, maybe isn't the right term. It's not like a war, but you just look less than. But then if you show up with the presence that I think I would want to show up with, and the cool products and the polish to our booth, it's incredibly costly. Getting all those vans and staff and all that stuff. I mean, we're talking, at this point, you're close to 6 figures to show up at a show like that. It's crazy.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if we're going to hit the overland expos. We're definitely going to do the adventure van expos. I think there's I'm going to try to get out to the storyteller meetup in Moab and try to do that. And then hinging off of this Baja trip, which we just put up the video yesterday on our YouTube channel, it was so much fun. And we absolutely have to do that. We want to share adventures like that with our customers. We want to share them with folks like yourselves and folks in the industry and keep that friendliness and that connection. I mean, how cool would it be to go on a run through some dry lake beds in Baja, with the owners of Storyteller and pick their brain and share a drink with them and a hot dog. And, it's cool. I like that. And I want that. I want this industry to be that.
You make a good point though. I mean, with the Adventure Van Expo, you're more customer targeted with that than say with the Overland Expo, because the Overland Expo is really, it's a lot of everything from motorcycles to vans and everything kind of in between. And then, to the big, the earth roamers and everything else that shows up there. So,
and you don't spend the quality time with the customers because a lot of it gets lost in the noise. You've got someone who, I mean, objectively, these vans look pretty sweet. I think so. And so you've got a Jeep guy and he walks over, he's like, so what are these vans capable of? Like, show me the inside. And you spend your entire time showing someone who's never going to buy a van, never going to buy a part from you. And then you've got two people that you actually, might be your customers, and you can't talk to them because, and genuinely the guy's very friendly and you want to give him time. And
just overwhelming.
Yeah. And you want to answer all of his questions and not shoo him away. And so you end up with, you accomplish almost none of your goals.
So what are some of the services now that you're offering for folks that aren't aware?
Yeah, it's cool. We're going to start expanding. We're really going to try to offer everything short of building vans. And one of the things that we're starting to realize is that these vans are fairly new, and this industry has grown so fast to so many more people that they're not having a ton of problems, but they will. And I don't mean problems like major problems, but things like servicing your heaters, changing out your atomizer screens, and these kinds of things. Mercedes services. I think anyone that's had problems with these vans realizes that, it may be covered under warranty, but do you want to not have your van for 2 months? And, get it back and
Right.
realize that they didn't, that I've had situations where people have a warranty item with Mercedes, they bring their van in and they go, oh, it's a camper van. Well, we won't take, it's under the galley. We're not taking that out. You got to take that out. Now you're bouncing between two different suppliers. So we want to try to have a situation where you can come in and get stuff installed like Owl products. You can come in and get roof racks done, flare space, wheels and tires, those kinds of things. And then also down the line, be able to support things like, servicing heaters and servicing vehicles. Not really things like changing spark plugs per se, but the
Right.
adventure van related stuff.
I appreciate your time. I know it's extremely valuable, and every second counts for you. So I really appreciate you taking the time to be on this podcast. Real quick, I like
Yeah.
to end every podcast with the one question. I think you already know what it is. What does it mean to you to be part of the Stowe community?
I think it's pretty cool. And just going on this last trip to Baja, I said I kind of refell in love with everything that is vans and adventuring and overlanding, because so much of our life is pulled and bifurcated. It's social media. It's think this way, hate this person, love this person, join this team, look at this ad, look at this video, watch the, and it's just so much. And there's something so beautiful about getting out there and distilling life down into what it was for millennia, which is a group of people in nature, telling fish stories, having a laugh and spending time away from screens and away from life and all those things. And it just, to me, there's something uniquely human about that. And it's my form of meditation and centering myself. And I think for other people that are drawn to this lifestyle in this community, they have to be that way too. And so for me, being a member of this community is recharging and energizing. And it's everything that I like about our brief time on this big, crazy asteroid hurtling through space. And I love it.
Well, that's a great way to end the podcast. Absolutely perfect. Again, thank you, John. I appreciate it. And take care.
Thank you.
Thank you, John.
I appreciate it. Thanks for the time.
Stowe Nation is a production of Park Media. The executive producer is Younghwa Kim. The audio engineer is
Stephen Grasso.
The marketing director is
Guillaume Golsong.
The original music and artists is done by
Jason Walsmith.
The sound designer is
Lorenzo Interiano.
And the assistant sound designer is
Peng.
Without any of these people, this podcast couldn't happen, so a big, huge thank you. And a big, huge thank you to you, the listener. If you like this episode, please don't forget to subscribe, share, and leave a 5-star review. This is Younghwa with Stowe Nation, and I can't wait to share the road with you.